If you want to turn to your Bibles, we're going to take a look at a passage in Matthew chapter 18 today. And I'm going to start out by saying this morning that there are some times that I get up here and I completely know what I'm going to say. And sometimes that I have a pretty good idea what I'm going to say. And you know, things change a little bit sometimes as I go. And there are some times that I'm really ready and anxious to talk about what I want to talk about, and there's sometimes that, you know, some things are harder to talk about. I have a friend who, whenever he preaches, he always preaches using, going through a book of the Bible or something like that. He doesn't do topical because he found that when he tries to do something topical that he would find topics that he would avoid because he didn't like to talk about. You know, it's kind of hard sometimes to talk about things that you don't want to talk about. It's hard to go to someone when you've got something that you want to say, that you need to say, and you don't want to tell them. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to tell you anything this morning that you haven't heard before. I think that just about everything you're about to hear you've heard before, and so I don't think that this should be, you know, like pulling fingernails out or something like that. But it's important that we're able to talk to each other. And so we're going to take a look at a passage here in Matthew 18 in just a second. Now, anytime that two people talk, when two people are standing next to each other, or you're talking over the phone, there's something that goes on in any conversation that you have, and it's called noise. There's noise to conversations. And I'm not talking about the kind of noise that you're hearing from me right now. You hear the noise of my voice, right? But that's really a sound. Yes, it's a noise. That's not the kind of noise I'm talking about. This is communication noise. Every conversation, anytime that there is communication, there's noise. Noise is not the communication itself, the conversation itself. It's not the words that I'm saying. It's not any of the words that you're saying to me. It's none of that. It's what goes on between me and you when we're talking. Noise is what gets in the way. You know, have you ever tried to have a conversation when you're somewhere like maybe you're in a grocery store and they're making an announcement over the loudspeaker and you're trying to have a conversation, trying to tell someone, and they can't hear you because there's noise that interferes with the conversation. And another thing about conversations, you know, maybe you've been out walking around somewhere and there's been a fire truck that went by and, you know, it's got its sirens going. You have to stop your conversation. I was down at McDonald's here one day. The McDonald's right down the road here one time, and I was going through the drive-thru and I was ordering something through the drive-thru, and just then an ambulance came flying by. So the person at the drive-thru was trying to tell me something over the speaker, and I just shouted as loud as I could, "Hang on a minute, I can't hear you, there's an ambulance." So I waited, the ambulance went flying by, the sirens wailing, let it fade out, and I said, "Okay, I'm sorry, I can hear you now. What were you trying to say?" And she said, "Well, I was trying to tell you that I couldn't hear what you were saying because of the ambulance." There's noise. Anytime we have conversations, there's noise. But noise can be more than that. There's more to noise. Because anytime that I'm listening to you speak, there are things going on in my mind that's noise. If you're trying to tell me about something important, and I'm thinking about all the things that I have to do tomorrow, what's going on in my head is noise. It's noise. It affects the conversation. If I'm going to talk to somebody that I have never met before, and they're going to come and they're going to tell me about themselves, but I think I know about that person, I think I know what that person's like, maybe based on their gender, maybe based on their skin color. You know, if I have this kind of preconceived notion about what the person's like, that's noise. It's going to affect how I hear what they say. And if somebody comes to me to tell me something and I'm mad at them, that's noise. You know, they can come and be coming to tell me something gracious, might be coming to tell me something loving and caring, and I'm mad at them, and I can hear things that they're not saying. I can start to hear things. Now, that's not necessarily the fault of me. It's not necessarily the fault of the other person. It's noise. Sometimes it's possible for both people to not be wrong and for the communication to still not be right. Do you get that? Sometimes there's noise that just exists. Anytime that I get up here and speak, there's noise. You know why? Because I'm 32 years old. That's noise. Because it affects how you hear what I have to say. If you don't think of me as, if you have an expectation based on me being 32, if you have an expectation on me because I'm a pastor, that's noise. It's going to affect how you hear what I have to say. So, noise is the number one cause of rumors. Ever heard a rumor? Ever spread a rumor? Ever had a rumor spread about you? Noise is the number one cause of rumors because it's what somebody thought that they saw or they heard, and then that gets communicated, so on and so on and so on. So if I'm talking to you and you say vocal tone, texting doesn't have vocal tone, it doesn't have body language, and you know, sometimes we misinterpret. Doesn't mean that it was my fault in the misinterpretation. I did the best based on my understanding of what the other person was saying. And it doesn't mean it's the fault of the other person because the other person was communicating their best, but it's noise. Email is noise. And so that's how rumors get started. I remember one time that a friend of mine told me something, and I knew he was mad at me. He wasn't saying it, but I could see it in the body language. I could see it in his posture. I could tell that he was mad at me. Now, here's the thing. This person was a pastor. He was a pastor of mine. Now, I've got a history that I'm not going to go into of being distrustful of senior pastors. That's really weird for somebody who ends up in my position, doesn't it? I'm distrustful of senior pastors. And I've got a history that causes that. It doesn't make it okay, and it's something I'm working on. But this particular person was a senior pastor, and because of that noise in my mind, my history with senior pastors, he's telling me this thing, and he was tired. He wasn't mad at me, he was tired. But he's sitting there, he's slumped, and he's telling me this, and I'm going, oh my goodness, he's disappointed with me. Here it goes again. That's noise. And that's how rumors get started. Because if I had gone on and I said, well, he's just like all the others who have hurt me and bothered me and done all these things, that'd be a rumor. Let's look at Matthew chapter 18. And we're going to read a brief passage here. And if you've read the book of Matthew, then you're probably familiar with this passage. If you've been in church, if you've been a part of a church for at least 5 years, you probably should have heard this passage at least once before. So I'm hoping that everybody's heard this before. We're going to read it again here in Matthew chapter 18, beginning at verse 15. If another member of the church sins against you, go and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. If the member listens to you, you have regained that one. But if you are not listened to, take one or two others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church, and if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile and tax collector. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among you. This is how we handle conflict in the church. We've got a 3-step process, which is a fairly simple 3-step process. And, you know, it's one of these things in the Bible that, you know, is very succinctly said, very, very short statement in how to do something. And then when you get into the practical aspect of actually doing it, you're like, oh my goodness, how in the world are we supposed to do that? It's like the phrase, be perfect, therefore, as my Father is perfect. Yeah, simple command, right? How do you do it? It's a simple command as in it's easy to understand. It's easy to comprehend what's being commanded. Yet at the same time, it's difficult to live out because, it's hard sometimes to go to the person that we've got an issue with. Now, I want to show you something here. We've been doing shapes, right? We're going to do another shape. Let's see, which color should I use today? I'll use blue. So we've got an issue. We've got person A and person B. Person A, he's a little round. Maybe he needs to lose some weight. He's just kind of looking like a circle there. That's going to represent person A. But person A's got a problem with person B. Person B did something to him or to her. And so we're going to mark person B in red. And so they've got a problem. Person A has been hurt by person B. Now, this could be a legitimate hurt. It could be that person B did something that was painful to person A, and person B either realized it or just didn't realize it. Sometimes we do some things and we hurt each other and we hurt people and we don't even realize that we've done it. And I think that this is actually the kind of situation that Matthew 18 is really trying to envision. If a member of your church sins against you, go and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. This idea of pointing out the fault literally means show the person what he did. Show the person that they have caused pain, that they've caused hurt. And so that's what it's telling us to do in this passage. It's telling us go to the person. Go to the person when the two of you are alone. And the great thing about when somebody comes to you, if you're the person who's person B, and somebody comes to you and says, hey, what you did hurt me, here's the thing. We can do one of two things. We can either say, no, I didn't mean to do that. That's not my fault. That's not what I was trying to say. That's not what I was trying to do. You just need to be not so sensitive. Remember what I just said about noise? The noise sometimes is not anybody's fault. So when somebody comes to you and they're saying, hey, this hurt me, you can say, wow, this person was hurt by this. Now, this isn't what I meant. It's not what I meant to do. It's not what I meant to say. It's not what I meant to convey or communicate. But this person cares so much about our relationship. This person cares so much about our friendship that they are willing to come and to talk to me about this because they trust that I want a good relationship with them too. So when somebody comes to you, it's easy to get offended. It's easy to get hurt back. Sometimes it happens. And sometimes it happens because of the noise. Because even when the person's coming to you, there's still noise. And you're still not going to hear it the way that they intended. Every time I stand up here, there's noise. Sometimes because of my age, sometimes because of my position. And you know what? There's noise because I'm not perfect. I don't say everything right. I don't even come close to saying everything right. If there was a single pastor in the world that could say everything right and teach everything right every time that they got up into the pulpit, first of all, we wouldn't need as many pastors as there are churches. We just need one pastor to preach on a video and then play that video everywhere else. Because that person was perfect. Why should anybody else even bother trying? We don't have Jesus on video. We don't have Jesus on DVD or Blu-ray or VHS or even 8-tracks. So pastors get up and we talk and we don't say everything right. Sometimes we get it wrong. And I told you when I came here, can you believe it's been 2 years since the first time I ever came here? I think it's two years this week. It was the first time that Leslie and I came down. It was August 16th or something like that. And I told you in that sermon that I promised you something. I promised you that I would hurt you. I promised you that I would disappoint you. And that I would say things wrong. That I would do things wrong. And I promised you that I would keep working on it. I know that I've done things wrong. I know I've done things that I shouldn't have done, and I've not done things I should have done. And there are many things that I can see that and I can recognize what I've done, and I bet that there's 500 times more times that I don't even have a clue about what I've done or what I haven't done. And for that, I'm sorry. I apologize, because I don't mean to hurt. I don't mean to misconvey. I don't mean to do any of those things. And I hope that you can forgive my brokenness. Because we live in a broken world. We live in a world that we have not yet been fully recreated the way that God intends us to be. And so until I've been fully recreated by God, I'm not going to be able to say things perfectly. I'm not going to be able to do things perfectly. I hope you can forgive me for that, and I hope that you can keep telling me. I hope that you can keep telling me about the things that bother you. Some folks have come to me and said, hey, you said this, and this bothered me. And I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. I appreciate when you come and you talk to me about what I've said or what I've done. Because first of all, that means I know you're listening. And I appreciate that. But second of all, it tells me that you care enough about the relationship to come and talk to me. Now, the thing is that a lot of the times, and this happens in the church, this happens out of the church, but this is our nature. We don't want to talk to the person who hurt us. Because I think there are a number of reasons that we do that. I think that sometimes we don't want to talk to the person because I'm mad, and sometimes I just want to be mad. You ever been in that place? I'm mad. I just want to be mad. That person was wrong, and they need to stay in their wrongness. And I just want to be mad at them. And so I'm not going to talk to the person, because if I talk to the person, I'm going to remember that they're human. I'm going to remember that I'm human too. I'm going to remember my faults, and I want all the fault to be on them. And so I'm not going to talk to them. I'm going to talk to the person who is going to make me feel good about being mad. What did I do with my ruler? There it is. And so I'm going to talk to the person that's going to make me feel good about being mad. Whoa! Straight lines. And, I don't want to talk to that person, so I want to talk to this person. And, this kind of starts to remind me of junior high. In junior high, Billy told Becky to tell Bobby that Jamie is mad at you. What? And so we create these. We create triangles. Triangulation is when we involve more and more people. It's when we don't talk to the person who's hurt us, and instead we talk to somebody else. It's called triangulation. It's what we do when we're avoiding a subject. And I can tell you, I am the master at avoiding subjects. I'm good at it. I'm good at not talking to the people that I should talk to, because it's hard to talk to the people that you need to talk to. Because, this person's already hurt me once. I don't want to talk to them because they could hurt me again. That bothers me. But the thing is that when I start talking to this person instead of this person, or I go through this person to get to this person, that I'm saying that this doesn't matter as much. And that's a problem. So we involve more people, and we want to find more people that think like us. So we find somebody else to talk to about it. throwing the caps here. And so we do this. We begin to create more triangles. And so now I'm going to find somebody else to talk to over here. I'm going to find somebody else to talk to over here. And I'm going to find somebody else to talk to over here. And so sorry, these lines don't have to be perfect, but I'm a little bit OCD. So now we start to get something that looks kind of like that, which might be pretty, but it's not really effective. Because here's the thing. You can be talking to all these people, and the person that you really need to talk to is right there. And something happens here. When we've done this, when we've created all these triangles and we've talked to each other about what bothers us, and we're not talking to the person we've got an issue with, we've done what we wanted to do. We've isolated that person. We've kept them out of it. And so, have you ever gotten into a situation where you feel like the world's completely against you? Maybe it's been in your job, maybe it's been in personal life. You just feel like the stars are aligned against you. Well, first thing is when I look at this, a couple thoughts come to mind. One is the phrase, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave." And first we practice to deceive, which is effectively what we're doing. Because we're deceiving ourselves. Because we convince ourselves this is going to make things better. We convince ourselves that this is going to make things better. It's going to make me feel better. It's going to make me feel better to talk to people who agree with me and isolate the person who hurt me. This is going to, I think it's going to make me feel better, but really it doesn't. It doesn't make me feel better because all it does is it harbors the bitterness. It lets us dwell on the things that hurt us. It lets us dwell on the things that bother us without ever working towards a resolution on them. And the other thing, too, is that then we start to do this. Now, what's that person supposed to do? You ever feel like you've been backed into a corner? Ever feel like the world's against you? That the stars are aligned against you? Because that's basically what it looks like. We've backed the person into a corner and say, "You're wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you need to be wrong." And through all this, we've completely lost our biblical message. We've completely lost Matthew chapter 18, verse 15. If another member of the church sins against you, now first of all, I want to point out that it says, if another person in the church sins against you. Against you. It's not if another person in the church has sinned against someone else or sinned against God. That's not what this is talking about. What this is talking about is if another person in the church has sinned against you. If they've hurt you, if they said something, they did something that hurt, if they did something or said something that you feel was wrong, that needs to be corrected, go and point out the fault when the two of you are alone. The two of you. I want you to think about a couple, married couple with a kid. and the married couple, they're fighting. And they've been mad at each other. And it seems like they've been mad at each other for a long time. And they need to talk out what they're mad about. But they don't. They don't talk to each other about it, because talking to each other about it just makes them more mad, and they can't work it out. Now, the Bible continues on that when you've got two people who can't work things out, that you bring in more people. But first, the two people need to try and work things out. And here's the thing. A lot of times when parents start to argue, and they feel like they're wrong, they're right, the other person's wrong, then what they'll do is they'll start going to the child. And they'll start to say, your mother did this. Now, when you get to be a mother, you better not do that like your mother does. Or, your father did this, and when you get to be a father, you better not do that like your father does. And first of all, what is that accomplishing? Is it working out the issue between the parents? It's triangulating. Not only that, the person you're hurting the worst is the child. We sow seeds of discontent. Discontent against the other parent, because we don't necessarily want to win. We do want to win. But we forget what winning looks like. We forget that winning looks like a reconciled relationship. We forget that winning is coming back and joining together. And we think that winning is having the might of numbers. My army's bigger than yours. So I'm going to recruit our child against you so that I can win this argument. And if I can't win this argument, at least I'll have this person on my side. And so we do this. But we don't just do it in our homes, we do it in the church too. I've seen it happen in churches. I've seen it happen where people have been mad at something that somebody did, and so they found people that agreed with them. They formed this little group, and now they're going to say, okay, well, we agree, and the other person's wrong. Now, first of all, they haven't even gone to the person, which person A should have done in the first place, and talked to the person who hurt them. Because as I said earlier, when I stand up here, wow, I don't even want to think about how many things I've said wrong just this morning. Because I'm betting there's quite a few. And I don't want to think about the things that I said that haven't necessarily been wrong. But I know there's noise here. So I don't know how you're hearing what I'm saying. I don't want to think about those things. So we can find somebody who agrees with us, and we can form these little webs, these nets, that we use to find each other, and we begin to break down the body. Because every time we form one of these connections, we're breaking a connection with the person who should be the focus here. The Bible tells us if the other person won't listen, then involve someone else. It's hard to go to someone when they've hurt you. It's hard to go to someone when you've heard something and you've seen something and it bothers you. They said this wrong, this hurt me, this bothered me. I don't want to go to someone and say, hey, you did this and this bothered me. Even when I know it was not their intent, for some reason that seems to be the hardest. I don't know why. It seems to be the hardest when I know that the other person's intent was good, but it still hurt me. That seems to be the hardest. Because right now they're not mad at me, but they might be if I tell them. So that's the hardest. I don't want them to be mad at me. I don't know where in our history, and I don't know what I might have said or done that have made it seem like I don't want people to come talk to me. If there's something I've said, if there's something I've done that's hurt you, that's bothered you, please come and talk to me. And if you come and talk to me and I'm not listening, tell me that I'm not listening. And if I still won't listen, get somebody else and come with me. Come with them to me. Talk to me. I don't know where in our past that we've gotten the idea that it's okay to not do that. But somewhere we have. I've told this to a number of people who have come and have talked to me that I'm not going to consider anonymous comments because I don't know where they come from. I don't know what noise happened in the conversation. I don't know what happened between me and the anonymous person. I recognize that it is hard to come and to talk to me about something. I get that. I get that it's hard because I don't want to do it too. I don't want to talk to people that bother me, that hurt me, that annoy me, that do things to me. I don't want to do that. There's a reason that the Bible gave us these commands. There's a reason that Jesus commanded this of his disciples. You know, it's interesting in the book of Matthew, the word church only appears twice. Twice. One is when he's talking to Peter, and he says, "Upon this rock I will build my church." The only other time in the book of Matthew that the word church appears is right here in this passage. If another member of the church, of the community. Because this is important to church community. It's important that we're able to talk to each other. I recognize that it's hard. And I hope if there is something that I've done along the way that's made it harder, that you can tell me that too. Because I don't want to make it harder. The more input that I have, the more feedback that I have, the more that you tell me, then the better that our relationships can be. So the Bible tells us then if the person won't listen, whether it's me, whether it's you, whether it's somebody else, whether it's the person sitting over there, there, no matter who you talk to, if they won't listen to how you've hurt them, sorry, let me try that again, how they have hurt you, then you bring one or two. Because this then goes back to the Old Testament law in talking about 2 or 3 witnesses. It's interesting, I think, that this passage in Matthew 18 is often lifted out of the rest of Matthew 18. And I think it's interesting if you put it back into the context of Matthew 18. Because this tells us about the health of the church. You know, if you look right before Matthew 18, see, there's some noise. If you look before verse 15 in chapter 18, you get the parable of the lost sheep. You get the one that was lost, and the shepherd leaves the 99 behind to go after the one. This is what comes right before this discussion on conflict in the church. If somebody's hurt you, the third step of this, if the person won't listen to a group, you bring them before the church. If they won't listen to the church, then you treat them like a Gentile or a tax collector. Now, treat them as a Gentile or a tax collector. Those are 2 hated and reviled people by the Jews. The Gentiles. They were not Jews, and the tax collectors, they're the people who sided with the people who are not Jews. They're the most hated people. But yet, think about the context of this passage. It comes right after the parable of the lost sheep. And how did Jesus treat tax collectors? This passage appears in Matthew. The Gospel according to Matthew, Matthew's namesake. Matthew, called by Jesus, was a tax collector. And Jesus went to him and said, "Follow me." Jesus pursues the Gentiles. He pursues the tax collectors. That's what the church is called to do, is to pursue with love those who are the Gentiles and the tax collectors. But then right after this passage, Peter asks a question. Peter came and said to him, "Lord, if another member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive As many as 7 times? 7 times is the common understanding for the time. How many times do you need to forgive someone for something they did? Jesus says, no, not 7 times. And it depends on the translation of the manuscript. The numbers vary. Not 7 times, but 77 times, or 70 times 7 times. 490, which means as many times as needed. Forgive. All this is about relationship, about bringing people back into the fold, about seeking out the one sheep that was lost and bringing it back to the other 99. This is all about joining back together. Because when you join together, the church is stronger, the relationships are stronger, the body is stronger. And when the body is stronger, then it can act like the body. Like I said earlier, I told you 2 years ago, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to disappoint you. I'm going to bother you. I'm going to upset you. I hope that you can forgive me for my insufficiencies, because I have a lot. I hope that you can forgive me for my insufficiencies, because I know that I'm capable of hurting, that there's a lot that I don't do right. I promise you one more thing. I promise you that if I'm hurt or I'm bothered by something that you said, or by something that I thought you said, or something that you did, or something that I thought you did, I promise you that I'm going to talk to you about it first. And I hope that you can promise to do the same. I'm going to talk to you first, so that we can make it right. So we can make the relationship right, so that we can make the relationship stronger, and so that we can do it together. I hope that you can promise to do the same.